Hey, if you travel a lot, well, you probably need to take extra precautions. You can often find yourself in a hotel or a city where nobody knows you, and it's easy to think that you can engage in all kinds of activity that no one will ever find out about. Whether it's a movie, a strip club, a prostitute, or a woman you meet. Hey guys, don't be so stupid to believe that lie. Having a double life will eventually tear your soul apart and will breed a deep shame in your heart. And it will never provide lasting happiness. It devalues your life and your self-esteem. Guys, if you struggle with this, share it with a trustworthy friend who can help hold you accountable. God designed it so we can fight these kinds of battles together. Don't try to do it by yourself. It's just too easy to fail. And hey, you're not alone in this. Embrace the power that comes from a trustworthy friend who wants nothing but the best for you. Encourage each other to live out God's vision for your work and continuously remind each other to be motivated and empowered by the gospel, by what Jesus has done for you in all of your choices. The wisdom of Scripture in 1 Corinthians 6:18 tells us to flee from sexual immorality. Avoid it like the plague. If you don't, it'll blow up everything. Your marriage, your career, and your life. If we're not prepared and focused on living out a biblical vision of work, this trap can grab any one of us.
I'm an experienced banker, and I've been in this business for about 30 years. We find ourselves in a huge growth period for a long time, and we decided to add some people to our loan staff. So we started the interview process, and this one lady came in. She passed all of our tests. I felt that she could fill a void. She had a great personality. We found ourselves working late on some projects and became even closer. One particular night, she told me how much she admired me, and she said that if her first husband was more like me, she probably never would have left him. I was floored. Maybe too much, I don't know. Well, one thing led to another, and this relationship became very serious, and I found that I wasn't prepared for the next step, and the next one was my marriage crumbled. Everything around me fell apart. My life, my marriage, my family. And I lost everything.
The final trap we want to talk about is the retirement trap. Now, you may not know this, but the whole notion of retirement is actually a Western 20th century invention. According to a study conducted at Georgetown University, around the year 1900, there were 75% of men over the age of 65 that were still working. In fact, most men worked as long as they were able. And if a man wasn't working, it was most often because he was disabled. Retirement wasn't an expectation for a man's life until very recently. And unfortunately, in many modern cultures, retirement has become the ultimate goal in a man's work life. It's the ultimate end zone. It's this supposed return to paradise when we'll be free from the toil of work and can just spend our time chilling, doing whatever we want, whenever we want. And many men feel this sense of fear or even shame if they don't think they'll be able to retire by a certain age. In this retirement mindset, work becomes merely a means to acquire enough wealth so we can stop working. The Bible doesn't make retirement the ultimate goal of life, and we shouldn't either. We're called to be creators and cultivators and a life-giving presence throughout our whole life. We never retire from those things and from God's call on our life. Now, sure, there are different seasons of life, and a man's most productive work years are typically from his mid-20s to his mid-60s. And as he gets older, well, He may need to or have the opportunity to shift how he creates and cultivates and how he lives out God's call to be an active difference maker in the world. Regardless, if you don't have the means to stop earning a paycheck, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. And if you are one of the fortunate few who can supply for your own needs without receiving an ongoing paycheck, you're still called to give your life away. You're still called to sacrifice and make strategic investments into other people. Work in some form or fashion should be a part of every season of every man's life, whether he's paid or not. By the way, economic statistics indicate that full retirement is going to be unattainable for most of us anyway. 75% of Americans nearing retirement in 2010 had less than $30,000 in their retirement accounts. And one recent commentator suggested that the inability to retire will become the new normal. The truth is that only a super small percentage of us can fund a lifetime of living on only 30 or 35 years of employment. So even if it was the right goal, it's an unrealistic goal for the majority of men. John Wooden, the legendary basketball coach from UCLA, is an excellent example of how to handle retirement. One author said this about him: after winning his 10th NCAA basketball title at age 65, Wooden retired from coaching, but he did not stop working. Until the day he died at age 99, he remained involved at UCLA, wrote a number of books, and was often quoted and consulted. Now sure, he retired from full-time coaching and probably stopped drawing a paycheck, but he continued living out a biblical vision of work even after he stepped down as head coach. He continued to use his time and his talents to create and cultivate and bless others. Guys, all of these traps that we discussed today can distract you from living out our blueprint for work. Traps that can rob you of God's best for your work life. Wise is the man who takes note of these traps and not only avoids them, but replaces them with a biblical vision for work. A vision that sees work as a vocation, as a calling, as a way to create and cultivate and be a life-giving spirit.
Work traps. Guys, they're real and they can take you down before you know it. Be aware of them. Be open and talk to your buddies about which ones tempt you the most so that they can encourage you in your journey. There's great power in that. Pursue living out our blueprint with all your heart and embrace the 10 essentials that we've given you, and you're much less likely to get caught in one. In this session, we have focused on work traps, traps that are more typically related to our work lives. Now remember, this volume, A Man and His Work, is one of 6. In Volume 3, A Man and His Traps, we dedicate all 6 sessions to traps and temptations from a broader perspective. We help you go beneath the surface and understand what lies behind them. It's something every man needs to experience because we help you deal with these traps at their root. As authentic men, we got to know who we are and who we're not. We need to be able to identify and understand both our strengths and our weaknesses.
These work catalyzers are game changers.
Oh, I love it. Ever since I was a kid, I knew soccer was what I wanted to do.
We are more alive, more energized, and more influential in our work when we get to operate from our strengths. A strength is not just something you're good at. It's also something that leaves you energized and feeling strong.